The date is February 11, 1996. After the birth of my youngest son the day prior, I developed postpartum preeclampsia. My son was born normally in 1 hour and 15 minutes. The physicians refused to operate on me or perform a C-section, despite the fact that cramps were approaching and the risk of bleeding to death owing to my lack of platelets was high. My preeclampsia lingered after I'd given delivery. My son, my 10th child, was pleasantly healthy and did well after birth. He's still alive and well today. He will soon be 17 years old. I bled from the nose, mouth, and eyes because my blood was low in white blood cells, which are affected in preeclampsia. The workers and the attending physician arrived every hour to collect blood samples. I was giving intravenous platelets in my arm, as well as some other medication that I cannot recall. I was aware that I was gravely unwell. The attending physician came to check on me every hour, and blood samples were taken every hour, day and night. I had a wonderful time with my newborn kid. I also had the opportunity to breastfeed him. I sat in my bed with pillows supporting my back on the evening of February 11, having just breastfed my baby and placed him back in his cot. I was exhausted and sick. I was also perplexed and dizzy. Then I understood I'd die if I laid down. I just got that information calmly and without drama. I just took note of it. I was exhausted and tired. I tried everything I could to stay sitting, but I couldn't, so I lied down in bed. Then, in peace and tranquility, I died by feeling and witnessing myself slipping out of my body, out of the back of my mind. I died and floated slowly and calmly out of my body, as if it were the most normal thing in the world, right after I floated in the air under the ceiling of the hospital room I was in, while my body was still in bed, and my baby was asleep by the bed in his crib. I left the room after floating under the ceiling, leaving behind my body, the hospital ward, and the hospital where I was lying down with my newborn son. I arrived to some wonderful, quite pleasant and gentle darkness after leaving the hospital. It felt wonderful, smooth and kind. Then I noticed a light in the distance. It became closer and closer as the soothing and loving darkness drew me in. Then I was enveloped in an unearthly, loving, very beautiful light. I met a glowingly gorgeous, very loving being in that overwhelming, radiating, loving light. I felt as if I knew him. It was apparently a he. I knew then that I knew him and felt entirely at ease and content. His loving presence completely engulfed me, and we walked through my life and everything I'd experienced lovingly together. It was observed, and all of the emotions experienced during the test were investigated. It was a pleasure to see him. My excellent friend, this light being, made a type of ecstatic eruption of light and love messages about what good I'd done in that instant we had just observed, while we were observing something really good. We communicated by using our thoughts and minds. Even though my life had not been easy, there were many smiles and enjoyments associated with the assessment of my life. It had been difficult, with many tears, betrayal, loneliness, abuse, and other difficulties. But there had also been tremendous joy with my grandparents and excellent playmates as a child, and subsequently with my own children. All issues were evaluated, and everything positive was highlighted and demonstrated. I could see it in him. He went through it all without a single negative emotion, which is strange to think about afterwards. Almost nothing in my near-death experience made me wonder or question anything throughout the entire encounter. I didn't think about any of these events I experienced until much later, when I reflected on them. What was especially good, I was told, comprised incidents in which I had acted with my heart rather than my head. This was specifically mentioned. This is how I learned the importance of being and acting with love and heart. To be happy and to treat others with as much goodness and purity as possible. Not to lie, but to stand alone and care for myself. I learned to be loyal to myself and my principles, to forgive without accepting unpleasant actions from others, to let go and forgive, and to remain joyful. I also learned to be as present as possible, to nurture myself and to be my own greatest friend, as well as to be a good friend to others. We all have our own route to learn and accept. Therefore, I try not to dwell on things, but to let them go when it's difficult. While I have the strength to overcome the challenges and problems, I attempt to address them again, to forgive myself and not to overwork myself, to feel myself more and not push myself too far, and to be good and honor all life. I discovered that death, or dying, is incredibly beautiful and full of joy and love. The entire time, I felt incredibly awake and attentive. I was extremely curious and observant, and my consciousness was unearthly, much larger than it is in life. I could see in all directions, even without thinking about it. I was able to focus on what I wanted and maintain it up close. I could simultaneously glance up, down, front, and behind me. I felt more alive and energized than I have in a long time, much more than I typically do. I had the impression that I could achieve anything. Not that I considered it, but I had no problems and never entertained negative thoughts. I felt energized, enthusiastic, and inquisitive. I was completely immersed in the current moment. I didn't feel or think about the agony. At the same moment, I went through the life review, with all the feelings and experiences, with this vivid and very loving being who I just knew so well, without understanding from where, other than when I was in the hereafter, when I'd been physically dead. I was completely secure. Everything was clearer, and I could concentrate when I needed to. The colors were more brilliant and clear. My field of vision extended all the way around me. It was heartbreaking, and the colors were out of this world. Throughout all of my near-death experiences, I was so happy and tranquil. I had some hearing loss in my life, but not in death, and I could hear far better than ever before. My hearing was okay. The sounds were lovely and melodious. My discussions with others were conducted by telepathy rather than through sound. I was overcome with emotions such as enormous joy, deep, deep love, comfort, thankfulness, liberation, and a sense that everything is as it should be. Everything is fine. I learned from the radiant creature, my loving companion, that I was simply passing through on the other side of death, and that I should return to life. I didn't take in or pay attention to this message, because I was distracted with everything else going on. All I learned, everything that happened, and all the love and joy that I felt. I was advised that I will be divorced from my husband later on, since my former husband and I couldn't carry on together. We both had something else to do, and I should think of it as a happy thing for me. Divorce would provide me joy and independence, but it wasn't going to happen right away. I was advised that I should forgive my then husband for his behaviors and attitude, and that I should continue on with my life with joy and thankfulness, even if he would terribly harm me. It was imperative that I let go of him. I was also told that I would have many wonderful experiences after that, and that I would start writing and publishing books about things I didn't know about yet. Then I was told that from then on, I would be working with something completely different from what I've worked with up to that point. In the future, I would have very different goals than I do now. I was taught that I should take care of my health and myself, as well as treat my body well. I'd be able to attain the goals I set for myself before entering this world, which would bring me great joy. There were also huge tasks ahead, which I had set for myself to overcome in this life, and I should work on not letting them weigh me down, but rather take them in stride and with joy, and forgive myself if I didn't develop as rapidly as I would have liked. Working on these issues would provide me with immense wisdom, understanding, and peace of mind. This was crucial for me to learn that it would take its time, and I should remember to ask for help because I would get it. It was told with laughing. When I was sad, I should recall and learn to focus on the joy, to remember all the good that had happened in my life, so that my emotional scars would heal. I should be looking forward to meeting a lot of wonderful individuals, good buddies and souls. I would later find love between a man and a woman, and it would be the cherry on top of the cake for the both of us. Then there was a lot of compassionate laughter. Right then, I was shown how he appeared, the man who would be my great love in the future, so that I would recognize him when we met on that day, off in the future. The reason I was told this was to calm me down so that I could work on myself and the life that I want, which I know will come one day with love. Following my analysis of my history and future, I went to a really beautiful and vivid terrain where I had the experience of walking with my active and radiant companion. All of the colors were so brilliant and lovely, as if everything was alive and bustling. I arrived at a wonderful location where some souls approached me. I recognized several of them, both people I knew in my current life and those who had died. My 4 grandparents, whom I adored throughout my life, were also present. They grinned and seemed content. They gave me plenty of hugs and love and told me they had a good time, were healthy, and were working on whatever they wanted the most. I also ran into other pals who had died and had come to greet me. They all stated I had to return and that it wasn't my time yet. Everyone was so healthy and happy, and even the elderly appeared to be at least 20 years younger. I felt really strong, and I was convinced that everything significant that happens to us in our lives, including my near-death experience, has a significance. The lives we live have a purpose. I then encountered a group of beings that I'd never met in this life, but when I saw them, I knew they were familiar to me deep in my soul. They were the people I knew best and cared about the most. They were the people with whom I felt the strongest connection in the entire universe. The reconnection filled me with such excitement that I felt like I was crying with joy and astonishment. Meanwhile, I was perplexed as to why, in my 42 years of life, I had never remembered them, those in particular. Meeting them was indescribably lovely. Now that I think about it, I realize that what I saw there wasn't all or even most of what happens in the hereafter. What I saw and experienced was planned specifically for me and my vacation. I was so immersed in the event that I didn't think about or worry about who I was or where I came from. I didn't even consider wanting to return. I just wanted to be precisely where I was. My entire focus was drawn to the encounter. Suddenly, a young man appeared in front of me, and I recognized him as my newborn son. He locked his gaze on me, and suddenly a voice shouted, his voice echoing across the room. "Mom, you promised you'd be my mother in this life. I wouldn't be here else." Then I was catapulted back to my body at breakneck speed. It only took a split second for me to re-enter my body, and it stung like hell. When I was leaving the hospital, the attending physician told me that I was the patient who had gone the furthest and then returned. He claimed they couldn't do much in that condition but give me a lot of platelets, watch me, and pray to God.